Hi guys. So Parashat Tisa talks about the sin of the golden calf. In Hebrew we call it chet ha'egel. And first things first, I will say that sin is not an accurate translation for the word chet, even though it's universally used as the word to describe this event in the Torah. Sin implies intentional wrongdoing, whereas chet actually implies a missing the mark or going off target. You could think of it more as a mistake that happens when you act from a place of misalignment with your center, which really means misalignment with divine flow. Now, what's really cool about this story in the Torah is it shows what brings humans to a state of misalignment, and also teaches us that in the experience of making that mistake, we actually have the opportunity to grow and become better versions of ourselves and realign with God from a higher place, thereby making the mistake itself a good thing in retrospect. So the story goes as follows. What created the misalignment in the first place? What created this chet? Bnei Israel are in the desert, and their leader Moses is on the mountain on Har Sinai. He's supposed to be there for 40 days and 40 nights, and he's supposed to bring back the Torah. And Bnei Israel accidentally miscalculate the amount of days that he's there, and on the days that he's supposed to come back in their minds, he doesn't, because of this miscalculation. And instead of assuming the best, instead of trusting Hashem that everything's going to be okay, this God, Hashem, that they had just seen and heard with their own eyes and ears just a moment ago in the revelation at Har Sinai, they immediately freak out. So from a place of fear, they panic and spiral out and assume the worst. And then they do something that almost all of us do in a state of fear and panic. They try to exert control over their circumstance in order to alleviate their anxiety, right? So you see this a lot in psychology. When fear surfaces in our body, there's almost an immediate instinctual desire to get back into control. It creates a feeling of certainty. And for Bnei Israel, what that meant and what that led to was their going and creating a golden calf, this animal made from gold, that they decided was their new leader and their new conduit to Hashem, to God. And then they start doing all sorts of weird stuff. They start raving and partying around this calf, and things get kind of crazy, and they behave not very nicely, and ultimately in this mania and stupor start to even give this calf, this physical object, godlike reverence, godlike quality, and godlike respect. And when Hashem describes what's happening to Moses is still on the mountain getting the Torah from Hashem. God says to Moses, go look at what your people have done. Hem saru mehaderech. They have strayed from the way, which effectively means they have acted from a place that is no longer aligned with the way that I've shown them. And what's really cool is that the word for this, for saru mehaderech, the word for this again is chet. And chet within itself contains a lot of information about the spiritual process within acting from misalignment. So in Hebrew, every single letter is said to have creative power and vibrational influence. And words are effectively stitched by these different letters. And the essence of the word comes back to the letters that make it up. If you look at the word chet, it's spelled chet, tet, aleph. So let's break this down. Chet, the letter chet, looks like two walls connected by a straight line, connected by a roof. And these two straight lines connected by the roof represent finding harmony in duality. One line represents compassion and giving and endless love. And the other line represents discipline and restraint. And we create harmony by balancing these two things. Now, when we balance these two things well, this chet looks like a home. It looks like a container. It contains our energy in a healthy way. But when these energies are off balance, when we're in too much chesed or too much gvura, when we're not living in harmony, this chet actually looks like something that's blocking divine flow from entering. It looks like a figure that's obstructing entrance into it. Chet. The second letter in the word chet is tet. And tet in Hebrew symbolizes tov, which is good, goodness. And lastly, we have the letter aleph. Aleph in Hebrew always symbolizes unification with God. It's a vav connected by two yuds. The upper yud represents the spiritual upper realms, and the lower yud represents the physical realm, and the vav is the connection between the two. It effectively symbolizes our connecting to God. So within the word chet is something very profound, because both tov, goodness, exists in it, and the connection to God exists in it. And the idea is that within every action that comes from misalignment, there is inherent good and the ability to realign with God at an even higher place. So misalignment actually sets off a spiritual process that by its nature brings us back to alignment with God. Now, how does this happen? In our lives, when things are going well and smoothly, we rarely sit back and reflect on ourselves. We rarely sit back and take account of our behavior or look at our patterns. It's actually when things are not going well, when we think we're on top of things, when we're driving towards a goal, and sometimes the opposite happens, or when we don't get the results that we want, that suddenly we take pause and start to think. And it's in those moments that we have actually the opportunity to ask ourselves, did I behave the right way? Do I know how to really get what I want? Do I know what it is that I want? So ironically, the mistake itself and then the karmic response to that mistake, the not getting what we want, the getting of bad results or outcomes that we didn't expect, is what allows for pause and reflection, and if we're smart and thoughtful, growth and change and transformation, and a return to alignment. We all want what we want to happen. And And the best way for that to happen is to act from our center. It's to act from a place where we are connected to divine consciousness. It's a very different place of action from fear-based action. And it's actually in the moments where we've made mistakes that we learn and grow and become better versions of ourselves, thereby making the mistake a good thing in retrospect. So that's the kind of magic in this idea of Chet and in the story of Chet HaEgel. What happens next and how Bnei Israel realign with God is a whole other thing, and I'm going to talk about it in part 2. This was a bit of a preface. Yeah, that's it. Thank you. Bye.